Good afternoon. This is Kurt Beckett, Chair of the FSEC Council, calling our May 20th meeting to order. It's 1:31 p.m. and Ms. Grantham, if you'd call the roll, please.
Certainly, Chair. Department of Commerce.
Elizabeth Osborne, present.
Department of Ecology.
Blake Nelson, present.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Nate Pamplin, present.
Department of Natural Resources.
Kate Jean, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Brian Rybaric, present.
For local government optional state agencies for the Hop Hill Solar Project for Benton County. For the Wallula Gap Project for Benton County.
Adam File, Benton County is here.
Thank you. For GoldenEye Best for Skagit County.
Robbie Eckroth, present.
For the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project for Skamania County. For the City of Stevenson.
Jeff Breckel for the City of Stevenson, present.
Thank you. For the City of North Bonneville.
Harold Cook for North Bonneville, present.
Thank you. For Klickitat County.
Jan Sokol for Klickitat County, present.
Thank you. And for the City of Camas.
Jennifer Sineski, present.
Thank you. Moving on to Assistant Attorney Generals, John Thompson.
Present.
Zach Packer.
Present.
And Talia Tuitt.
Present.
Now to Council staff, Dave Walker.
Present.
Amy Hofkemeyer.
Present.
Amy Moon. Sarah Randolph.
Present.
Sean Green.
Present.
John Barnes.
Present.
Joanne Snarsky.
Present.
And Maria Belkina.
Present.
Moving on to operational updates, I'll call those anticipated to speak today. For Kittitas Valley Wind, Jared Casaday.
Jared Cassidy, present.
Columbia Solar.
This is Sarah
Goose Prairie
Randolph. I'll
Solar?
be speaking on behalf of the facility.
And that is Sarah Randolph.
Yes.
Thank you. Goose Prairie Solar. And Sarah, will you speak for Goose Prairie Solar as well if they do not show up?
Yes.
Thank you. And lastly, Ostria Solar.
John Volz, present.
Thank you. Finally, is there anyone here for the Council for the Environment?
Yes, Sarah Reineveld and Yuri Curl are present.
Thank you, Chair. There is a quorum for all councils.
Thank you very much. Before we move to adopting the agenda, let me speak to a couple issues of our attendance today. First, on behalf of the entire agency as well as the council, I'd like to certainly welcome both our ongoing local representatives for the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project, and also that we have Jennifer Sinescu, who's a newer member today, and staff will be updating on that project. But ultimately, I think we have 5 participating representatives, so I think we're close to figuring out our full project council on CRT. So it's been an important step, and just wanted to acknowledge both the ongoing presence as well as our newer members. Relatedly, for our permanent council members, I wanted to acknowledge that Elizabeth Osborne will be stepping aside from the FSEC Council on behalf of the Department of Commerce, I believe effective by the June meeting. And we're pleased to have her with us today and appreciate your longstanding service not only to the state but also to the FSEC Council and agency. And with that, I was going to turn this to Council Osborne for any remarks that she would like to make, knowing we'll find a means to, in a moment, to honor you more formally in the future. But with that, I would turn it to you, Council.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. I appreciate having had the opportunity to serve on FSEC on behalf of the Department of Commerce, and I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to you, Chair, for your leadership, and to the FSEC staff for their consistent, high-quality work and support of the council members in our decision-making. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank the current members of the council and the members who served throughout the time I was here. I very much appreciated your perspectives and benefited from your expertise during my time. The last thing I'd like to add is that I really appreciate and thank the members of the public who participate in FSEC's work. Yeah, I would just really like to thank them for contributing their time in that effort. So thanks again, Chair Beckett and members of the council, and that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. And if any other council members care to make a quick word, let me acknowledge that, and no obligation, but otherwise we'll proceed. So with the, and I should note on closing note, having learned this in a quick call that Elizabeth was good enough, or Council Osborne was good enough to make time for, that she onboarded during the Horse Heaven project, but I believe in the heart of the adjudication process, which would be quite a place to begin your service on the council. So at some point, wherever that was in that process, I just want to acknowledge that added duty as fate befell you. So thanks again. So with that, council, we have an agenda before us, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. And we have one change that I'll speak to in the discussion. So if I could put the agenda on the table.
This is Brian Rybarek. I will move the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The agenda is on the table, and we have one project that we need to amend the agenda to add, which is an update on the Kittitas Valley Wind Project, which would be item J. And while this does not, that's number one. Number two, this does not really require an amendment, but I wanted to acknowledge it out of transparency, both for council as well as others online or participating from the public, that at the tail end of our director's update, I wanted to just have a quick discussion amongst the permanent council members of some additional topics that we might bring to our forum here on occasion. So I just wanted to acknowledge that up front. And if there was further discussion or amendments, I would hear them now, and otherwise we have an amended agenda on the table, which I will soon call action on. Any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor of adopting the agenda as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we have our agenda for the day. Moving on to the minutes, I would entertain a motion to adopt the April 18th regular monthly meeting minutes. Is there such a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the April 18th, 2026 monthly meeting minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Brian Rybarek. Oh, Kate, go ahead.
Thank you. Kate Dean, I'll second.
Appreciate that. Are there any changes to the minutes from the council? I do not know of any, since I typically bring them up, or have. Council Pamplin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. On council packet PDF page number 11, which in the quadrant of the pages of the meeting minutes, page 28, line 10, I believe I had said, or your 27-29 operating budget, and it says operating project. Thank you.
Thank you. I think staff have that change. Any others? Hearing none,
Real quick, I'll just note that I think this is just a good hygiene practice for us, particularly on motions. There's a lot of times, and I know the court reporter has to follow this very quickly, that we have unidentified voices are the people making the motions. I think it's probably just a good practice for us to identify ourselves, then identify the motion, and keep a complete record of who's made those motions.
Appreciate that. Yep. At the end of the day, FSEC is as much a record-making place as it is other things. So appreciate that.
Yep.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor of adopting the minutes as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions. Minutes are adopted as amended. Moving on to our project updates. So we're going to obviously take up Columbia Solar here, and Sarah Randolph will be providing the update actually on both item A and B. And I just wanted to flag at a high level, you'll hear this in other form from Sarah. There are two amendments for these two projects, and in last month, the amendment was in your packet, and you'll have an update on that today. On Goose Prairie, there is the information on the amendment request, and then proposed after the June meeting, we would be taking both those changes up in a public hearing, and you'll hear more from the staff on that, and then likely action in July on both those. So at a high level, those are the kind of interrelated things that are coming up on items A and B, and I just wanted to try and frame that going into the particulars of each item. So hopefully that helps. And with that, I will turn it to you, Sarah Randolph, for an update on Columbia Solar.
Thank you, Chair Beckett, council members and staff. For the record, this is Sarah Randolph, Site Specialist for Columbia Solar. The regular facility update is provided in your packet, and there was nothing non-routine to report. As mentioned at the April council meeting, Columbia Solar submitted a request for transfer of ownership pursuant to WAC 46366. Given the administrative nature of the amendment request, staff proposed that we hold the informational hearing required by WAC 4636630 immediately following the regular June council meeting. Details of the informational hearing will be noticed in the incoming week. Following the informational meeting and review of comments received, staff will prepare the necessary documentation to support the council's action on the request, which will be posted for public comment prior to council vote on the request. We anticipate requesting the council to take up the decision in the July council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any comments? Knowing we did a little last time on that one, so. Okay, hearing none, we will move on to Goose Prairie. And again, Sarah Randolph.
Thank you again, Chair Beckett. For the record, this is Sarah Randolph, Site Specialist for Goose Prairie. The regular facility update is provided in your packet, and there was nothing non-routine to report. On April 29th, Brookfield applied for an indirect transfer of the Goose Prairie SCA. Similar to the activity for the Columbia Solar Amendment request, staff proposed that we also hold the informational hearing required by WAC 4636630 following the regular June council meeting. Details of the informational hearing will be noticed in the coming week. Following the informational meeting and review of comments received, staff will prepare the necessary documentation to support the council's action on the request, which will be posted for public comment prior to council vote on the request. We anticipate requesting the council to take up the decision in the July council meeting. Thank you.
Council, are there comments to the materials in your packet today? I have at least one, but let me call on my fellow council first. All right. So I have the hard copy that doesn't have the page numbers on it, but if you look in your PDF on the transfer of an FCA, so there's the cover letter and then it goes into the number 1, number 2. So on summary of an application for transfer, and at the top of the next page, there's the term MSA, and there's a couple undefined acronyms like this that there are more in here than I realized once I went down this rabbit hole. But essentially, what does MSA stand for? I believe it's probably Management Service Agreement. But can someone clarify the definition of that acronym? Because it's, to me, not an unimportant document, which I can explain. But Sarah, do you know, or others?
I don't know that we have the definition of that acronym on hand, but certainly we can clarify with the certificate holder and follow up with the council.
That'd be great. Knowing we're still in process here and there's no action today, but assuming it is a management service agreement, and if even it's a different word, I think that's the effective use of it. And that document, as I read this, is what ensures that the actual services in the operations are accountable to the SCA from the new agreements that they are arranging that we're being asked to approve. And I generally didn't have other concerns with what I read, and not being a finance expert, but it certainly is seems some large reputable firms that this is getting transferred to as far as that piece of it. But I would just emphasize the way I read this is whatever's in the MSA, standard as that may be, it's the connection between the SCA and the new ownership, which would seem material. So happy to, other council members, if you want to chime in on anything else or what I've shared, but that would conclude my feedback. And Amy Hofkemeyer.
If I could just make some additional clarification. For the record, this is Amy Hofkemeyer. For both facilities SCA amendment requests, the actual certificate holder will remain the same. So for example, Goose Prairie Solar LLC will remain the certificate holder. These changes in ownership are upstream changes and reflect changes in higher level ownership of those LLCs and are generally reflected in the holder of the financial assurance that those facilities provide.
Thank you. I think that's a helpful comment in particular. And let me just be clear, I don't have great concern about what the management agreement says, other than knowing, that we've got enough connectivity there to the SCA and, as you just clarified, the current operator. But ultimately, resources flow through that. And, we just need to make sure that there's enough connectivity between that signed, executed document and the SCA. So hope that helps. Council Pamplin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Nate Pamplin. I found it on PDF page 20. They did spell out the acronym as Master Services Agreement.
There you go. I looked twice, but good old, what we read or what we don't read. Good. Well, I will go back and read it a third time. So thank you. What page again? I'll make a note.
Page 20.
Appreciate it. So unless there's other comments, I will help move us on.
Mr.
Please.
Chair, I guess the only thought I have is, we're going to take action on this and discuss it. It sounds like more deeply in about a month's time. But I think what you're getting at here, to me, is the very analysis that we have to think about, which is what's the risk factor here? Is this increasing any risk at all? And again, I think a change of ownership upstream is pretty normal course of business oftentimes. And again, I think you pointed out these entities appear to be well-financed, well-known entities that are coming here. But I just wonder from a staff perspective, and again, not asking for the answer today, but just to have that be a little bit of the focus point for all of us, just to make sure we understand what the potential mechanical risks are of changing an ownership structure like this. But recognizing the certificate and everything will remain in the same exact entity, just whether that upstream ownership has any increased risk, or at least some assessment of how we've looked at that from a staff perspective would be really helpful. So let's table that for now until June, but we'll have a more thorough discussion of it then.
And I would also note, I thought the depiction infographic that lays out how the structure works and the ownership and the percentages, as well as at the footnotes for anyone that cares to be interested, you can find the stock listings and all that and all the public disclosure. So despite focusing on the NMA and asking a question or two about it, I again thought all that was before us looked clear and well presented, and I appreciated that, and evidently my own oversight on page 21 with the definition. So thank you. All right, then we will move on to Austria, and John Volz will provide the update today.
Good afternoon, Chair Beckett, council members and staff. This is John Volz with Cypress Creek Renewables, representing the Austria Solar Facility. In the previous reporting period, the O&M facility setup continued, established power, internet, water, septic services. We received the permission to operate letter from Bonneville Power Administration, which allowed the 6 megawatt curtailment to be lifted. That curtailment lift allowed us to proceed with the remaining activities for commissioning and performance testing. So aerial and field infrared scanning commenced, and a majority of the construction equipment demobilization began. So we are getting near the end. As far as the environmental features, there's been several identified items that needed to be remediated. Those are, if not already remediated, are currently in progress. Making efforts to progress toward installation of the permanent BMPs. Other than that, there is nothing non-routine to report for the period.
Thank you, Mr. Volz, and thank you for the added emphasis in the improvements that have been made or are in motion. So I know that was of concern as flagged by the staff, and appreciate the shared effort there to get that up to standard. So were there other comments from council?
Real quick, Mr. Chair, and John, thanks for the updates. I think I've asked this before, but getting near the end leads my mind to want to know when the anticipated end is, and wonder if you have an update there of when full commissioning and full operations are expected.
Yes, sir. We are targeting to end the commissioning efforts and the contractual obligations with our EPC contractor June 15th. The full generation of the facility is underway, and so for the, I guess, commercial perspective, we are operational. That's the PTO letter from BPA allowed us to begin to produce, generate some revenue from that production. As far as operational under the SCA, we did perform, this will be on next month's update, we did perform the vegetative assessment earlier this week, indicating we have achieved the required vegetative stabilization, which will allow us to submit for the NOT. But the timing on that's a little, we have to ensure that the environmental compliance is maintained throughout that process. And so for hard date, I would say June is what we are targeting. May slip into July, just depending on final closeout items.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other hands, we will move on to Carriger Solar, and Joanne Snarski is here to provide an update.
Thank you, Chair Beckett and council members. For the record, this is Joanne Snarski, the siting specialist for Carriger Solar Facility in Klickitat County. The judicial review of this project with the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation is ongoing and is being handled by our record staff and the Assistant Attorney General. Meanwhile, FSEC staff continued to discuss Carriger's timing for submitting the construction plans required in the site certification agreement. We anticipate a few of these draft plans in the coming weeks and are ready to review them upon receipt. May I answer any questions?
Seeing no hands, we will move on to the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project, and Maria Belkina will provide the update.
Thank you, Chair Beckett and council members. For the record, my name is Maria Belkina, siting specialist assigned to the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project. On May 1st, FSEC issued a SEPA determination of significance and initiated the SEPA scoping comment period for the project. The scoping comment period is currently open through the June 1st. Scoping materials, notices, and supporting documents have been posted to the FSEC website. On May 19th, FSEC received the applicants' responses to the first round of data requests, and staff are currently reviewing the submitted materials as part of the ongoing application review process. FSEC staff have continued coordination with state and federal agencies regarding environmental review responsibilities and alignment between the SEPA and NEPA processes. Coordination is ongoing with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Oregon agencies, and other cooperating and reviewing agencies. And finally, we have received additional council appointees, so now all local jurisdictions that are going to participate along the proposed corridor are actively responded on the council. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council members, any questions or comments? Let me make sure we have several of our local representatives online. Yes, Commissioner Leckie.
Yeah, this is Asa Leckie. Yeah, I just had we got notice that the tribes want a government-to-government consultation. Should we consider delaying public comment until after August, till having that consultation, so the tribes will have time to put in their comments after that consultation? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think Amy Hoffmeyer will
If I
Thanks for
may.
that initially. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So we are scheduled to have a tribal-specific SEPA scoping meeting closed to receive confidential or potentially confidential information from tribes. Specifically, scheduled the same day actually as the public SEPA scoping meeting. This additional consultation will inform the overall project review and may include some information provided during SEPA scoping, but may expand beyond that. We expect the consultation to be part of ongoing conversations.
And Council Lecky, as well as for other members and staff can help correct anything that need be. So, and I'll use the Cowlitz tribe as an example and map it to the larger current process. So the Cowlitz asked for consultation with the FSEC Council. We did that consultation recently, as was noted in the public meeting. Yesterday, I believe, or day before at latest, I received a response letter from the Cowlitz that I don't think has been published yet in terms of available to the public, but it is a public record and will be. And that was generally some feedback on the consultation. And then same letter also acknowledged that they would be sending in their SEPA scoping comments. The reason I bring this up now is while we will continue to have, in this case, a SEPA scoping consultation with or meeting with tribes, in addition and in parallel with the public comment that same day, ultimately all that input is for the public record, including on their scoping comments. If there are culturally sensitive information that is not subject to disclosure, I'll acknowledge, that could be the case. But generally, and I think the tribe's intent is, when it comes to what they think should be included in a scoping process under SEPA, it will be public and it will be part of the overall record that non-tribal members of the public have access to and can comment on and will be part of the process. So let me look to staff, or in case also Council Thompson online needs to clarify anything I've shared, since this is my first, big transmission corridor project too. Let me make sure that's correct. But I hope that helps, Council Lecky, just to make sure we know that at the end of the day, even if there's some separate meetings, the full record is going to show before there's ever a decision. All of that will be part of the full project council's consideration. So. Go ahead, Council Lecky.
Yeah, I just had another question. So that not all the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project members are involved with the tribal consultation then? Some of the tribal consultations are held in different meetings? Thank you.
So no, thank you for the question. It's a good one because it's an emerging evolution on the answer. So today, under FSLA, which creates FSEC, the chair is designated by law to do the consultation on behalf of the council. And that is what the Cowlitz tribe requested. On June 11th of this year, the new law that then allows the full project council to meet with the tribal council upon request, that will be possible, so that the full project council can meet with the tribal council in consultation and ensure, there are things that need to be exchanged between the full councils, including sensitive information, that can appropriately occur. Any of that information ultimately will be part of the public record and will be part of the public decision and will be discussed in public by this full project council. So we now have, if you will, two tools in the toolbox for consultation. The Yakima Nation has also this week asked for consultation, and they in particular are the Washington tribe that have long wanted only to be able, or to at least primarily be talking with the full FSEC council with the full tribal council. And so in early July are currently the dates that are being, in flow where that consultation would occur. And while that will be emphasized to be an in-person consultation in Toppenish, preferably for all or a majority of the council, it will be a hybrid meeting. And I know for some that's important because you are interested in participating, but it needs to be done virtually. So we appreciate the Yakima Nation's support of trying to have that hybrid ability, and that's kind of the latest on that consultation, in this case with the Yakima. So, and happy to see if you have any other questions, Council Lecky, from what I just shared.
No, thank you. That clarifies it. Appreciate
Great. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Then we will move on to the Horse Heaven update. Sean Green of the FSEC staff will provide the update.
Good afternoon, Chair Beckett and FSEC council members. This is Sean Green, SEPA specialist for FSEC, reporting on behalf of Amy Moon. Staff continue to work with the certificate holder to review mitigation plans as required under the Site Certification Agreement, or SCA. And on May 14th, FSEC received the draft pre-operational technical advisory group facilitator report for Habitat 6 project layout and design. Staff are currently reviewing the report and will provide feedback to the certificate holder in early June. Micrositing clarifications captured in this plan are within the terms and conditions of the current site certification agreement. Does the council have any questions?
Council members? None at this time, looks like. So thank you. We will move on to Hop Hill Solar, and John Barnes will provide the update.
Thank you, Chair Beckett and council members. This is John Barnes, FSEC staff for the Hop Hill application. On April 28th and 29th, FSEC met with Ecology and the applicant's consultant, ERM, or Environmental Resource Management, to conduct field verification of the wetlands and waters delineation reports for this project and what was produced by ERM. We are awaiting the ecology validation report for this visit. Staff are also continuing to work with the applicant in the submission of additional application materials for the Hop Hill project. Are there any questions?
Council members? Hearing none, we will move on to the Wallula Gap Solar project, and John Barnes will provide that update as well.
Thank you, Chair Beckett and council members. This is John Barnes, FSEC staff for the Wallula Gap application. Staff are continuing to work with the applicant, One Energy, and the Yakima Nation Cultural Resource Program staff regarding impacts identified in the TCP Traditional Cultural Properties study and report conducted by the Yakima Nation for this application. Staff are working with the applicant and the Department of Ecology to determine if project modifications are needed based on information contained in the Department of Ecology Final Wetlands and Waters report. As a reminder, identification of potential project impacts and mitigations that can be resolved as part of the FSEC SEPA determination process. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Council members? None at this time. We will then move on to the GoldenEye battery storage project, and Joanne Snarski will provide that update.
Yes, thank you. Again, this is Joanne Snarski, the siting specialist for the proposed GoldenEye battery energy storage facility in Skagit County. Staff are continuing to assess the potential impacts from the project as required by the State Environmental Policy Act. Following coordination with representatives from both Department of Archaeological and Historic Preservation and the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, on May 8th, we sent a letter to the Upper Skagit tribe. This correspondence articulated the feedback we need from them on the Cultural Resources Survey. The tribe acknowledged the request and indicated that they will be able to respond to us very soon, hopefully this week. And that's all I have. Can I answer any questions?
Council members? I think we'll wait for the answer too. So thank you for the update. And then we do have item J, our last added project today. Again, this is as a reminder in this ongoing first few months, projects that are routine, they're in the packets, but they're listed in the bottom of the agenda under note. When something happens after the agenda is published, we're able to quickly amend and put it on the agenda for the day. We try to do that in advance if we know, just for transparency standpoint. But with that, Jared Cassidy will provide the update. Cassidy, excuse me.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Beckett, FSEC council and staff. This is Jared Cassidy with EDP Renewables for the Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project. Kittitas Valley had 2 turbines vandalized between January 2026 and April 2026. This incident has been reported to the Kittitas County Sheriff's Department. Turbine G4, damage to the door lock mechanism. Turbine G1, unauthorized paint marks at the base of the turbine tower. Both turbines have been repaired. Do you have any questions?
Council members?
Chair
Councilman
Beckett,
Barrick.
and just one question. Obviously, operate other projects across probably many geographies. I just wonder if this is a trend you're seeing elsewhere. Is this a unique situation to this location, or just kind of give us some context for the vandalism that's been identified at this location, if you could.
So this project's been operating since 2010, and this is the first time we've ever had an incident of vandalism. So for here, it's extremely rare.
Any context? Are you seeing anything in other places that we should be mindful of as we think about the context in which we're operating these projects, or is this unique? It's obviously unique for this location. I just wonder if you're seeing any trends elsewhere.
I think I'd defer maybe to offline for that comment, considering it's not affected to this project.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Anything else, council members? Hearing none. With that, we will move on to our final item, which I believe is our director update from Dave Walker.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. For the record, Dave Walker, Interim Director with FSEC. I do have a couple things to talk about today. First of all, I wanted to give an update on our strategic planning as an agency. If you recall, last year we began the process with our extended management team on identifying several areas of the agency that we wanted to bring forward for the 26-28 strategic plan, which predominantly focused on our strategic focus, what matters not only to the agency but to our customers and partners, defining our unique contributions that the agency brings, and finally, what is our overall scope that we really wanted to focus on during this 2-year period. We have draft finals right now. We have not finalized this as of yet. There is a little bit more work to do when it comes to designing our measures and metrics around how we know we're going to be successful as an agency. The end goal plan is to have the new strategic plan stood up and operational July 1st of this year. So we have a little bit more work to do on that front with the metrics, but we are very, very close at this point. We are also looking at putting our one-page strategic plan out on the internet for those of the public and our partners who wish to take a look at it. And I believe most likely the next council meeting will be ready to more openly share that with the council once we have everything nailed down on it. So any questions on strategic plan?
Council members?
Okay.
I will just say as chair, I have been a participant in that work and really appreciate the internal work that was in part there before I ever came to the agency, but it certainly has been a focus as intended before and during my tenure here. And it's a product I can stand behind, and so certainly welcome others' feedback. And it will, maybe Dave spoke to this, but it's worth reiterating. Ultimately, the plan is reflective of lots of feedback the agency's gotten, I think, over time, and certainly in the past year plus in my term. And the plan can iterate. So as things adapt and we learn, then so can the plan. So I would just emphasize that as folks see it. So feedback's welcome, but at the same time, know it'll be a kind of a living document where it needs to be.
And thank you for bringing that up, Chair Beckett. One thing I would add is that we did our best in incorporating both partner and customer input that we have received that you were just discussing a moment ago. Ongoing input, nothing that we specifically requested, but nonetheless, they were all focal points as we moved through putting this plan together. So I think we have a very comprehensive plan in moving forward once we get it finalized. So the next piece that I wanted to speak to was, and this actually is an element of our strategic plan. We've identified that there are several internal processes to the agency that we need to start doing process mapping around. And we've actually begun those efforts here a month or two ago with certain processes within the agency that we felt needed to be brought out immediately. But there are some larger conversations and larger efforts going on around mapping the siting process as an example. And we used one of our newest projects, Gray Bobcat, as an example of that as to how we believe it's going to fall out. We're going to continue to grow these mapping processes, but we see them as being very beneficial in not only helping us identify what's going to be required for these projects moving forward, but it's also going to be very transparent for the project owners themselves to understand, what are the timeframes that we're looking at? What are the steps potentially that we're going to have to go through? There are many, many ins and outs to the siting process, as we all know, and it's very dependent on what has occurred previously as to what are going to be the next steps within the process. But that's something that we're still striving to capture as much as possible and begin to get a better handle on making sure that we're openly communicating with our partners on what is going to be required for these projects. So more work to come on that. Any questions from the council?
Councilmember Rybaric and Dave, thank you for that. I'll just add to it, and I think this is inherent in that process, that transparency is really important to the members of the public who might want to engage in that process or sort of understand the sort of start to finish process, because I think that can be really challenging if that's something you want to engage in, or members of the local governments that want to see sort of that process spelled out. That process mapping, I think, it's just a great exercise for everybody in that process to truly understand what are all the steps that go on along the way. So appreciate the work that's being done there.
Absolutely. Well, I can speak for myself. I had a couple of aha moments as we were moving through the process. So it was beneficial. Absolutely. The final piece, I just wanted to give a quick update on the executive director recruitment. We completed first round interviews last week. Tomorrow, we are going to be meeting with all 4 of the candidates that had initially gone through the first round for second round interviews. From there, we will be making determinations for potential third round, which I think is going to happen at that point. That's generally when the final candidate or candidates have an opportunity to meet with agency staff. Questions can be asked of them both ways. At this point, I'm anticipating having a new executive director on board no later than July 1st, and that would be physically on site. Of course, those timeframes can change depending on what occurs between now and then, but at least that is our goal moving forward. So, and that's all I have.
Well, thank you. So thank you for all that. Let me make two segments of comments on the process improvement mapping and just other aspects of that. I just want to thank the staff, especially the team that has been most directly attached to that work here in the near term, knowing it has touched others, I'm sure, already beyond it. But it's added work on certain levels. I want to acknowledge that, but the degree we can embed it with what was existing work anyway that we're doing, I hope that helps. And how we best work together to manage all those different competing priorities and demands, I want to acknowledge that. And it's, as I've said privately, but I want to say it publicly, that's always an important open conversation to stay close with, because we're going to do better work for it. And the answers lurk in unusual places. I'll just say that on how the process works. How does it work, better, differently, faster? Sometimes it needs more time. So, there are all those range of dynamics that we have to balance as an agency, whether it's the council or the staff. So want to hold that up and celebrate it and say thank you. On the interviews, and sorry, maybe you said this, Dave, But I did want to acknowledge to the council as well, also thanking Council Pamplin, who had volunteered if there was a role, to participate in some of the interviews. And so he will join us tomorrow as part of the interview panel, and just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge that for our fellow council members as well. And thanks for volunteering earlier on. You bet. Were there other comments to Dave's council members? Okay. Then we will move on to the item I referenced very high level at the beginning. And so this is just a quick discussion, more once I kind of set the table for the permanent council members to weigh in. If other project council who are here had any comments, I certainly would add those in, but want to acknowledge this is probably more focused on the permanent council members. And we started a practice in December that with a couple new council members, and we'll have to catch the new commerce person up too. We had an outside presentation, in this case from Fish and Wildlife, who had been bringing forward for some time an important body work around shrub step and new guidelines and a process through that. And while I think there was an intent to repeat that with other change, including all the list we just ran through, we just haven't been doing that. So I don't think we lack for topics, and some of those could be more specific to our work on whether that's battery storage safety, as an example, shrub step we've done. I would note the rolled out this past week by the Director of Ecology and the Governor, the Washington's Water Future Initiative. And clearly that's a big issue, and it's clearly always been an issue in energy projects, but it's going to be on display as more of a primary consideration probably than it was in years past. There are others that go into, larger energy, how much do we need and when and where and those things. And I want to acknowledge at the Department of Commerce and the UTC who do joint work on some of those topics. We need not be repeating it always, but at the same time, if any of you find benefit in, as a council, as the FSEC council, hearing of that, and if you can hear it one more time for some of you, like Chair Roberick of the UTC, then I'd kind of, defer to you. I would also note and thank Council Osborne for flagging it in our call last week, which is the Northwest Power Planning Council will be releasing their 9th power plan draft in July. And there is definitely relevance on what's going on in that to everything I just listed. So I'll stop there, other than, actually I should have noted, and I don't know how to, kind of work through this, but affordability is on display more than ever, but including in the FSEC statute called at a reasonable cost. And I don't know how to use that or quantify it or qualify it, but it would seem relevant in amidst to all the other considerations that we have. So with that, let me turn this to my fellow council members and just whatever you care to share. And this would be intended to, is it 30 minutes at the end of a meeting that's already not going 3 hours? Because it's like today, it's 2:19. And if we went to 3 o'clock, what would we do with that 41 minutes? So I want to also acknowledge that you all have day jobs in addition to your service here on the FSEC Council, unlike me. So I would defer to, just how do you all want to balance that? And I don't think that this always requires all of you to be here. Not that that should be exclusionary. I think we'll do better work if we can have most of us here. But it can be at the tail end where we've already got a meeting running. For those who want to participate from the public, it's not much of a added resource use to keep going another 40 minutes. And I want to try and keep this light on the staff as far as who's presenting and things like that. So, and I thought Shrub Step was a good example of how to balance all those different realities. So with that, finally, back to the council. Council Dean.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. I would just like to say that I would really support that. And as the newest council member, I'm probably still coming up to speed more than the rest of you. But I, for example, found it really helpful to go to the meeting that the UTC hosted with BPA. And, I just think context is really important in these really complex situations. And I benefit a lot from the opportunity to learn more than can be included in our packet, of course. So I support that as the agenda allows.
Thank you, Council Dean. Let me turn to Council Pamplin and then to Council Nelson, who I noted had his hand up a moment ago. Council Pamplin.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm a proponent of this idea. I appreciate you bringing this forward again. I see in FSEC statutes also part of the mission is a convener of these conversations. And so there is an obligation in front of the agency to do that. And this proposal, I think, helps meet that need. In terms of the suggestions about, yes, if we have a very busy action-oriented agenda, maybe we postpone that briefing to later. I'm hoping that a lot of the types of briefings that we would be asking likely other agencies to bring forward is something that they've already prepared. And so it's hopefully not an extra, significant workload. It wasn't that much work for our staff to bring forward a presentation on the update of the wind and solar guidelines, for instance, in December. And so hopefully we can replicate that. In terms of potential topics, I really like the idea of receiving an update on the energy kind of demand forecast. What's the current utilization? What's our state's progress relative towards deriving energy from clean energy sources? And then another potential topic, and this is, I haven't visited with ecology on this, but what's the status of their new clean energy permitting pathway? And is that ready for a briefing in front of this body? So, thank you.
Thank you. Council Nelson.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. Council Nelson here. I was just taking notes from what Council Pamplin was saying. That was great. I'm also a proponent of this idea. Speaking of date.
And Council, you have frozen, I believe, just to let you know. You may want to rewind just briefly.
Here. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, great. I'll just turn my camera off. I was just saying I'm a proponent of the idea as well. And in my day job, I oversee a product stewardship unit. And we have take-back programs where producers pay for the recycling or disposal of products in the state, such as solar panels, and soon medium format batteries, and perhaps eventually large format batteries. So at the very least, although the program's been deferred for a couple of years, I would love one of my staff to come present on that solar panel take back program to the council, because ultimately producers will be paying for those costs eventually in the state. So I yes for the idea, and products as well as ecosystem.
Appreciate that. And certainly as small scale solar continues to deploy and as various panels cycle out, that'll be a more of a retail residential version in addition to the commercial. So appreciate that. Council Rybarek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just add to the support for this concept. I don't have a list of ideas, as Councilmember Pamplin very nicely brought to the table, but I'll think on that. But this is an important piece, as I think both you and Councilmember Dean noted, that we are at the UTC trying to engage in this kind of the more you know campaign. But ultimately, right, the decisions we have to make here at the FSEC, the decisions we make at the UTC are based on a record of a case before us. And so often we're kind of learning that in real time, which is really important. But I think this is an opportunity for us to get educated so we can ask even better questions in those processes and have that process be more efficient and more effective for the people who are participating in it. So I think this is great. It's going to be incumbent on us to continue to think of good ideas to bring to that table and make sure we have the time for it. But I think this is part and parcel of the continued development, the convening work that we do here at FSEC, and ultimately getting us to make better decisions. And that's a really good goal. So appreciate the thinking on this and big support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Don't see any. Okay. And actually, since the Council Dean brought up the meeting with Bonneville, and I'll, on behalf of the UTC, let me just say thank you, because that included FSEC and Commerce and Ecology, both Director Sixkiller and myself and others. And then, as it turned out, new FSEC Councilmember Dean was able to join us despite a very short notice. So appreciate your extra effort to join that day. And I think more of that is important too, and how we leverage many of these forums in that way. Okay, well then that actually concludes our meeting today. Any last comments from council or staff? Then I will adjourn us at 2:26 p.m. Thank you all very much for your time and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.